In the last chapter that we read, Despereaux was trying to help save Princess P, who was trapped in Rat World. And he has an unlikely person helping him. Baldo, the genie. Chapter 32. The battle begins. Despereaux and Baldo hurried toward the dungeon stairs. "Charge!" the mouse cried from Baldo's shoulder. With each step, the genie grew larger and larger, and the mouse rose higher and higher, until, at 7 feet tall, the armored and tired in kitchenware, the genie looked like the proudest of knights. He wore a mixing bowl as a helmet and a roasting pan as a chest plate. In his hand, he brandished a long rotisserie skewer with a roasted chicken still spread to its end. "Tell me again," Baldo said. "Chivalry, bravery, honor," Despereaux said, raising his needle into the air. "Chivalry, bravery, honor," Baldo repeated. He thrust his skewer sword with a laugh. "Ha-ha, I just love to be out of the kitchen." The genie dashed down the corridor. Into the breach. "Into the breach," he cried. Despereaux clung on tight as Baldo descended the many flights of stairs to the deepest part of the dungeon. "Down this way," Despereaux said at the last step. He pointed in the direction of the cells. "Andiamo! Charge!" Baldo shouted. They turned down the dark corridor. "There! That way!" The mouse motioned toward where he had last seen P. Her door was opened. "Ha!" Baldo cried, leaping in front of the princess's cell. They peered inside. "But she was," Despereaux said. They were too late. P's cell was empty. In the packed Colosseum, Botticelli's booming voice drew the rats' attention away from the princess pinned to the floor. They looked up at the royal box in anticipation. "My friends! My friends!" Botticelli cried, placing a paw on Roscuro's shoulder. "There are rats, and then there are rats." The rowdy audience raised their fists into the air and roared. "And now," Botticelli continued, turning toward Roscuro, "I would like a huge round of applause for our good friend here for delivering us our princess." The rats welcomed their new hero with a thundering ovation. There was no denying it. Roscuro was now utterly and unmistakably a rat. His reception could be heard in every corner of the dungeon. In the distance, Despereaux cupped an ear at the sound. "Come on, let's go," he ordered Baldo. They bolted past the cells, following the applause. "Oi, hang on," Meg called through the bars of her window. "Where are you going? Help!" But Baldo and Despereaux were already marching toward the bridge that led to the Colosseum. "Hurry!" Despereaux cried. They did not see the many glowing red dots blinking in the darkness. The rats were watching. "Oh," said one, licking his chops at the sight. "Look at that." "Let's get him," said another. At his cry, hundreds of rats poured forth from the shadows of the dungeon hall. They looked like an army. As one, they ran at the genie. "Ah!" Baldo cried as the army attacked. He tried to move forward, but the rats crawled all over him. They climbed up his legs and into his armor, gnawing away at every limb and joint. "Keep going," Despereaux urged. A rat raced up Baldo's shoulder and lunged for the mouse. But Despereaux was ready. He wielded his needle like a battle axe, whacking away as bravely as any full-sized knight. The rat tumbled to the floor. A second rat followed, and then another. From every side, rats pounced with open jaws. Despereaux kicked a big one, pushed him to the ground. He tossed another. He jabbed and blocked just as he had done in the library. Only these were not imaginary enemies. The rats were frighteningly real, and one by one, the mouse's blows threw them to the dungeon floor. But it was too late for Baldo. The rats bit into his foot with a loud crunch, and the genie crashed down the stairs. When Despereaux saw him again, the valiant knight was just a long trail of pots and pans. Chapter 33. A chain of remarkable events. A ball of light bounced down the dungeon corridor. Gregory the Jeller was holding his lamp while making his rounds. His feet rhythmically clomped on the stone, and his ring of keys jingled with each step. He stopped and looked around. A muffled voice called. Gregory tilted his head. Did he hear something? I'm in here! Gregory's ears perked up. He walked back to a cell door and peeked through its small window. He saw a girl crouched in the corner of a dingy cell. Or what he thought was a girl, anyway. With her back to the Jeller, she looked more like a mountain of rags. Help! I'm in here! She screamed into the grate in the floor. Gregory placed a key in the lock and pushed the door open. He stepped inside to get closer. The girl wept, not seeing him enter. The Jeller raised his lantern, and the beam of light fell upon the top of her left shoulder. Gregory struggled to hold the lantern steady. His hand shook as the light hovered directly upon the girl's heart-shaped birthmark. The Jeller dropped his ring of keys. Gore, Mig said, turning around at the sound. What took you so long? I've been screaming in here for hours. It's strange to think that the Dorians who gathered outside the castle walls had no idea about the chain of remarkable events occurring within. Not the father-daughter reunion in the dungeon, nor the mouse's quest, not even the capture of the princess who is about to become dinner. You see, at that moment, the people of Dor were experiencing their own rather remarkable series of events. The villagers had felt the rain and they had smelled the soup, and now behind them a single ray of light was breaking through the clouds. Look, Pa, there, said a boy, pointing up at the sky. Up there! The others turned towards the light, and then, all together, the villagers raised their faces towards the sun. But the king at his window looked down. He gazed out at the smiling faces cleansed by the rain and the warmth of the sun, and he smelled the aroma of soup brewing, and a tear formed in the corner of his eye. The king had forgotten. He had forgotten the smiles and the soup and the rain and the sun, and all of this sparked a flicker of life in his sad, sad heart. Despereaux opened his eyes. He slowly got to his feet and looked around. The rats were gone. Baldo lay in pieces all over the floor. The mouse was alone now. He hung his head in despair. Nearby, something rustled. Despereaux looked up to see Baldo's hand stirring. It lifted slightly and pointed in the direction of the Colosseum. Despereaux looked to Baldo's face, as if reading the mouse's mind, the genie smiled. The mouse was reminded that a knight must forge on with bravery, chivalry, and honor, and that is exactly what he did. The Colosseum crawled with rats eager to eat. Everywhere were pointed claws and scaly tails and long dripping teeth. The rats leaned hungrily toward P, and the guards struggled to hold them back with long sticks. Wait just a moment, Botticelli told the crowd. Patience, not just yet. He motioned to two of his rats who rolled out a giant gong for all to see. The crowd went wild, knowing the feast was about to begin. Ah, the honor is all yours, my friend, Botticelli said to Roscuro. He handed him a bone. Eat, 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 the rats chanted. Roscuro took the bone in his paws, and the chant grew louder. Eat, eat, eat. The rat raised the bone in the air. The next chapter we'll read is chapter 34. Time for dinner.